Well, welcome everybody. We're so happy you're here. And Joshua Davies is involved in the Embassy for Peace, which is an international outreach to people. And I couldn't have come in a more timely manner, though I know you've been living this all your life. Yeah?
The last 35 years.
Yeah. And so Joshua has been here many a time over the last year and a half or so.
Yeah.
And this is the third session on peace and ways in the world. And he'll speak with us. And then he has this incredible bio-type feedback for the brain and the mind and the whole being, working with the breath and seeing what actually happens through this type of meditation. And then we'll do the question and answer time. So thank you so much for being here. And
thank you, Shara, for the introduction. I kind of know most people here, if not all. I think I know them all now, by now. So I'm very glad to be here again, as you see. So what I'm going to talk today about is how brain and body participate in the creation of knowledge and meaning for intentional action and value-based decision making. And it's self-evident to all of us that we have deep meanings or dear meanings, like the love of our mother or son or grandson, that are important to us. And those meanings are very personal, are very particular to each of you. And these meanings color your actions in the world and your actions with your family. And that which is not meaningful to you, well, it's kind of there, but it doesn't play a big part in your life. So I was interested a long time ago in how the brain participates in the creation of meaning. And I found this amazing professor called Walter Freeman. And in Berkeley University, and had a collaboration with him for many years. And as a consequence of that, I wrote a paper in the Kirk's Cognitive Neuroimaging Lab in University of Auckland. We've done a study there, and this paper is published. You can read it. It's free to download. It's how do you say that? Copy whatever. Creative Commons, yeah, so it's available to everybody. And it's about how we measure EEG signals and derive information to assess the cognitive states of people, or what kind of energy consumption, metabolic pathways, or ways of the brain consuming energy in different states and creating different brain waves. All right, so basically, that which I'm talking today is part of a big body of science, and I'm gonna focus on here, and I'm also gonna focus on here, okay, on these two, and heart dynamics. But I'm gonna skip all these areas of research which are or conform the research about inner peace and social harmony. Okay, so what about this brain field and the creation of knowledge and meaning? Well, Walter Freeman, who is this professor I work with and whom I want to dedicate this presentation, he passed away in 2016. He's still very close to my heart in spirit, declared that the brain was not an information processing device, that we are not kind of biocomputers just reacting to the environment a la Skinner, the way Skinner was describing in his behavioral theories, or radical behaviorism, but that we are engaged in meaningful interactions with our environment. And he declared that meaning, and not just information, is the currency of the brain. And what that means is that raw sensory information, it's meaningless, but once photons hit our eyes and sound waves hit our ears, these signals and these stimulus are integrated by the brain to produce, based on memories, meanings. And those meanings actualize our network of meanings as we grow and develop during life. So our meanings are changeable, and they are being recreated half a second by half a second, more or less. And so, of course, if you see that picture there, maybe you know it already, but I want to know if you can see any meaningful images in there. Anybody? Anybody? All right. So, Carrie, can you tell them what you see in that picture?
I can see two images. An image of a young woman with a little feather in her hat, and she's got her head to the back. And then I can see the image of an older lady, and so the feather is part of her hat. And she's got a big nose and a big chin.
So now that Carrie's spoken, who can see the elder woman and who can see the younger woman? Elder woman. Elder woman? Okay. Younger woman. Okay, so let me show you this. This is the mouth of the elder woman. This is the nose of the elder woman. And this is the scarf of the elder woman. Can you see the elder woman now? Yeah? Now, this is the nose of the younger woman. This is the eyelashes of the younger woman. And this is the ear of the younger woman. Can you see the younger woman now? Looking towards there? Yeah. So there are two hidden meanings there that only arise when we look at this picture properly. And perhaps all of reality, perception of reality works for us like that. We only see meaning when something becomes meaningful to us. When we pay attention to our environment and we discover patterns that we engage with. And that was just a little presentation of how your brain, from meaningless sensory input, a meaningless picture created meaning, whether the elder woman or the younger woman or both. All right, so how does the brain participate in the creation of knowledge and meaning? Those are questions which are important. How do oscillatory systems like the brain and the heart respond to different kinds of meanings and meditations when we're stressed, when we're happy? Does the brain dynamics changes, or our heart rate variability changes? What physiological signs can we measure to see when we're stressed and when we are at peace? That's important. And of course, that's got many implications. If we learn how to regulate at will our stress hormones and generate more psychophysiological coherent states, meaning states where we experience more peace, inner peace and health, then that impedes directly in general well-being, spiritual and behavioral values. We learn to react less and be more amicable to others. And that, of course, contributes to social harmony and better social contracts, which now we know, we have to start drafting again for the next years to come. Okay, so which materials and methods we used here? We used a net that is placed on the head with many electrodes, as you can see, 128. We translate those electrodes into a matrix like that, where every signal, every electrode is measured for maybe 7 minutes or 8 minutes in each modality. And then we produce movies or pictures like that to understand what the brain is doing as time goes by. And we will see an example of that. And of course, this is how a participant looks with the helmet on top of them with all this 128 electrodes. There are many modalities. We use ambiguous images or words which are badly written. We call them scrambled words. You can see that it says there waters and not words. But the brain resolves this issue. Sometimes we don't even, are conscious that the brain is resolving this issue, and we can find the proper meaning of a word which is badly written. Then mathematical operations like this, 7 times 7 equals 49, 4 plus 9 equals 13, and that goes as 3 plus 1. And when you have a 4, you just press the keyboard in the 4, and then you answer the question, to signal that you understood the meaning of that operation. So we can verify that the person who is participating, it's actually deriving meaning from these tasks, pushing buttons that confirm their meanings, and also while we measure them in brain dynamics and heart rate variability. We also do meditative states and watching videos with songs and music and so on. We measured 20 participants in 6 different modalities, and I just want you to imagine something much simpler than that. A rabbit is given a flash of light for a moment, and the rabbit needs to decide if that flash of light is a dangerous thing or a good thing. If the rabbit is scared after the flash of light, he learns, or she, that that stimuli brings danger. If the rabbit is given a candy or a piece of something that he likes, sugar, or a gentle blow in the face, which is pleasurable, then the rabbit learns that after the flashlight comes, something good is coming. And so by doing that, Walter Freeman in his lab experimented with rabbits, and they had implanted in their brains electrodes, which are called ECOG networks, to collect data. And in a certain band of activity, we collect data, and we can see that before the stimuli, before presenting the flashlight, this is how the 64 electrodes in the brain of the rabbit are behaving. But when the stimuli is presented, the amplitudes, become bigger and the signals desynchronize. So there is an effect of that stimuli in there. And we can see things like that in there. I'm not going to go in details in that, but I'm going to show you a quick movie of what happens, when we present this stimuli to 20 rabbits with certain stimuli condition and another stimuli, and 20 rabbits on this side and 20 on this side. I'm going to show you movies of how they behave in 1 second after the stimuli. And you're going to see online the dynamics of that brain in a movie that is recorded on the brain of the animal. Of course, we calculate of those signals indicators or indexes that allows us to see if there is a real change in that post-stimuli window after the flashlight, meaning from second 3, which is the stimuli is presented, onwards, and you can see that after the 4th second, everything returns back to background activity as in the beginning. But in this window here, there is a huge peak and another peak, and that's where the creation of knowledge and meaning is happening in rabbit brain data.
How's that shown?
Huh?
How's it proven?
I'm going to show you. Yeah. So this is human data, okay? To your point right now. So this is humans trying to process a word, and they have to discover the word and then key. And you can see here that lasted like about 4 seconds, which is 4,000 milliseconds. And then you can see here, right here, that there is a huge amplitude modulation with a big synchronization of all signals. All signals happen to be overlapping. And when you do that and you use a pragmatic information index, which is the analytic amplitude squared, the average of these analytic amplitudes, squared, which is the measurement of energy, divided by the distance between the signals, you get this incredible peak. And this is a coherent state, which means that the brain is consuming a lot of energy. And we already know from neuroenergetics that the brain consumes energy mostly when their neurons are firing, meaning when the amplitudes are going up. So the creation of meaning, it's connected with the consumption of ATP in the brain and energy, which is stored in glycogen in the form of, in astrocytes, in glycogen storage, let's call them compartments, biological compartments, where glucose feeds these storages. And so when you get tired in your mind, you will just need a banana or something, and then you will replenish the glucose, and that will create more glycogen, which will be more ATP available for you to consume to think and create knowledge and meaning. But if you're thinking too much, you can actually deplete yourself from energy. And that's why so many people who think and think and think get stressed, and they get tired and sometimes sick for thinking so much. And so the point is, how can I actually regulate that so that to my advantage I can be healthy and think better and manage my energy and my cognition and my mental health. And this is an example of a very real signal for humans, where we know that these humans have been creating meaning here because they push the button to indicate that they understood the task and they solved the problem after 4 seconds. So this is what the brain of that human is doing when we film the left and left, front, and well, you can derive back and right from these indications. And you can see how when in the pink side, the pink indicates higher amplitudes and the blue lower amplitudes. So higher amplitudes are moving back and forth in the brain from side. And in here in the bottom, you can see that there are pulsating patterns, meaning the energy, it's pulsating or it's traveling in a tornado pattern. You see the tornado going backwards and forwards, which means that the information in the brain is going from one place to the other like this, or like that, or like this, is pulsating in one part. And it's in certain moments that the amplitudes are really high, that meaning it's created, and knowledge for intentional action. And I'll continue with that one. Okay, so now you have the comparison between many activities and 2 different participants. This is one participant, number 1, and number 2, and this is the modality of meditation. When they're in meditation, video, watching a video, trying to understand the sentence, and doing a mathematical operation, math mind. Okay, so this is how it goes. And so, of course, you can see that this pattern here, it's very different than this pattern here, for example. And if you watch, a long time, you will see that there is a difference also between this participant and that participant. This seems to be way more active than this one. And of course, that's very hard to determine like that. You have to do quantitative analysis of that. And that also is here. All right, so this is the quantitative analysis part. And basically, I'm going to present it to you, but basically here we have, the electrodes, the mathematical matrix that measures signals each millisecond, then the pragmatic information index in the different areas of the brain. You can see that they light up in the prefrontal cortex in this particular modality for this particular participant. And this lasts 4 seconds until the person pressed the button to indicate with an answer that this word here that they were trying to devise was love. And when they discover the word love, they press a number to indicate that they understood that it was the word love. And we can detect all that in the experiment. And that experiment, well, integrated 20 participants. So that means that we can measure the mean numbers of peaks per second. And by peaks, I mean these peaks that I showed you here, these peaks. So here, if this is 4 seconds, there are 4 peaks per second. That's about 1 peak per second. In this particular one, you can derive it visually, but of course we do that mathematically. And we do that for every single frequency band because the brain has many frequency bands. And then we analyze all that stuff. And so here are the peaks per second in the alpha band, and you can see the threshold, and everything above that we count as a real peak. And here's in the gamma band, which is much more busy. And then we do our analysis, and then we also calculate time between peaks and the length of the peak in pink, the peak time. And all that is telling us how much time the brain is spending in this activity, or the percentage of time we can calculate in resolving a stimuli, finding meaning, and taking an action. All right, so this is an example of what we derive in the different modalities, like watching videos and math mind and words and meditation and videos and sentences. You can see that there is much more peaks per second in every single band for the modality of sentence, meaning resolving a complex sentence, than in meditation. In meditation, people seem to have way less activity than in sentences, solving sentences. And the same for words. And here you can see the interval of confidence for each band. and each activity. So obviously meditation is less busy than sentences, and also images, ambiguous images, is less busy. So that means that ambiguous images, when you're seeing images with multiple meanings, until the meaning arrives, your brain is doing nothing. So that's a kind of a form of meditation or relaxation. Seeing an image, trying to derive something, and your brain is blank because nothing's coming. So that is a form of meditation. And you can see that reflected in that activity. So we've chosen very carefully these activities based on previous experiments and experiences. Okay, here you have all the different modalities in the different band, and you can see meditation is significantly different than words, for example, and sentences and videos, and even significantly different than processing images, because the beta bands are much smaller than in meditation than in images. However, in the gamma band, the gamma band of these two are very similar, while these two are much smaller than all these 3 and 4 actually. So, okay, so that tells us which modalities, which kind of activities in the world consume more energy and take more time to resolve and causes more brain draining of energy, mental energy. Okay, so here we have it only for alpha and gamma. You can see the same, but without the beat, all the intermediate bands. And finally, this is the time between peaks and the time of peaks. So you can see also that the times of the peaks in images, the between peaks is longer, and the times of the peaks is smaller. So that means that these are less time-consuming bands than these ones. And this is the percentage that the brain employs of all the modalities in resolving the stimuli. And so you can see that there is way less percentage of time required in meditation, which means less energy because less peaks. And then in words, a lot of energy consumption and so on. You can see all the other modalities like images, mathematical modeling, sentence, and video meditations. Now this one, it's a very interesting one, and I'm going to let you watch this one for a moment. These are meditators on this column, and these are non-meditators on this column. And this is the brain dynamics of meditators, of many meditators, forget about this one here, and non-meditators. And you can see that the green, it's it's alpha band, and the pink, it's gamma band. So that means that the meditators are more in alpha most of the time when they're meditating. And also, because this is also in green a lot, the meditators take that state of gamma waves into watching a video. But the non-meditators are way more busy. And you can see that in the movies. If you can keep watching the movies for a while, you will realize, you will see a pattern. And it's obvious that the meditators in meditation are more green than in any other activities or compared to meditators, non-meditators. So that's, okay, a way of imaging that. So we have a conclusive element of understanding here, which is that the bands that consume the less time to process stimuli, it's the modalities is in meditation, in mathematical operations, and in images. For every band, these are the 3 modalities that are observed to become the smallest or the least load for the brain. And for the largest load for the brain, for all bands, it's words, video watching, and sentences. Decoding sentences. So, okay. So now I talked about the brain a little bit, just to introduce you to the fact that our brain is working while we're processing the stimulus. So I must have you tired with so much information, okay, because you're trying to process the meanings of my words, plus my Venezuelan accent, plus who knows what. So I just want now to go back to how do we regenerate and consolidate information when we apply breathing techniques to reduce the load that we've put in our brain, and that is called psychophysiological coherence. And to introduce you to that very briefly, before I do a demonstration, we use a device called the emWave from the HeartMath Institute. So when you're frustrated, your HeartMath looks like, your heart rate variability looks like this. But when you're in appreciation or in harmony, your heart rate variability looks more like that. So the question is, can I change from frustration to appreciation very quickly? Can I do that efficiently in any situation when I get a stimuli that really makes me frustrated or whatever, or stressed? And the answer to that is yes, and we've done a lot of research on that, and we conducted a research study together with the HeartMath Institute in California. They were the main research body, and we had a team that interacted with them in New Zealand, and there were other 5 teams all over the world, in Saudi Arabia and Lithuania and England, in the United States and so on. And we all did meditative activities in certain times, at certain times of the day, and certain times of the 15 days ongoing measurement. Every participant was measured 24/7. We only interrupted the measurements 1 hour a day for washing and things like that. And then we observed 20 participants in average in 15 days, and here are the coherent peaks as measured as coherence ratios in the moments of meditation. You can see the peaks every day at the same time when we meditated, and there are the peaks in coherence. And here are the peaks, and here are the peaks, and here's the peak, and here's the peak, and here's the peak, and peak, and peak, and peak, and peak, and peak, and every single day has a peak when we meditate. No possible mistake. All right, and these are the average of 20 participants. And then we have other peaks here, which are other meditative techniques. This is a very particular meditative techniques based on values that we do at the Embassy of Peace. And what happens is that we generate a lot of peace and positive emotions at will. We know how to do that. And I'm going to demonstrate that today, what I do. And you're going to see it online with my heart beaming a heart rate variability on the screen today. And if any one of you want to be tested, you're very welcome, and we can see how you're doing. And now this is the 15 days put together with their respective interval of confidence at 95% significance. So you can see that this peak is definitely significant, statistically significantly higher than any other activities and other meditative techniques. It's very clear. All right, this is an element of movies where every bar it's a participant, and you can see here what happens with the community of 22 participants as the hours of the day go by and we get to meditation. So here, you see A here is A and F, meditations. Sleep time is A and F, so these are sleep times, very little coherence when people are sleeping. And then when people meditate will be B and G, so you can see here B and G, it's meditation hours, very high coherence ratios for most participants. They all go up relative to the sleep mode. And then in day 1 and day 2, these are different days. So, okay, day 2 and day 3, so you can see that at these hours, the whole community becomes more coherent. Okay? Good. Okay, so what's the conclusion of all this that before I do the measurement and the demonstration? The main focus of meditative states, which lead to general well-being, and the connection with spiritual values like love and truth and unity and synergy and happiness that we can embody more often at will. When we value someone or something, this person or thing becomes meaningful to us. In turn, what is meaningful becomes valuable. We value. So love, light, truth, and unity are meaningful as abstractions, and experiences make them really real. When I talk about love, you know, I mean, if I try to think what's love, that's an abstraction, but if I have the experience of love, that makes it very real. It's experiential. It's self-evident because it happens to me. I don't have to prove it to anyone. You don't have to prove to anyone that you love your children or your wife or your friends, and so on. And okay, so they impinge on social relationships and contracts like marriages and constitutions, like the pursuit of happiness and justice and freedom. And then inner transformations, new insights, and higher meanings. So that means that as we grow in values, we can refine our intentions and our actions in the world become more positive and more benevolent. So they definitely, and our goals more meaningful. And so definitely all this scientific research will have, and it's having an impact in the world. We intend to conduct similar studies with a larger database, like 200 participants or so, and deepen our understanding of how the brain participates in meaning, creation, and knowledge. And of course, this is all done with non-invasive tools, as you will see now. And all right, so as I said in the beginning, I dedicate this talk to Walter Freeman, since I really love that man, and he was a luminary in systems neuroscience from Berkeley. But apart from that, he was a wonderful person and a good friend. And so now our questions and answers, but I want to show you, demonstrate to you how this works in reality so that you can see an experiment done on me right now. But I'm not going to demonstrate brain dynamics because that would be very complex, but I'm going to demonstrate how through my earlobe, I put a sensor here in my earlobe, and this is going to record my heart rate variability, which is not the pulse, it's the time between pulses. And that information captures, it's affected by the release of stress, depending on what my nervous system is doing, particularly when there is unbalance or balance between the activity of the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. So these two branches of the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, are captured by heart rate variability. And according to the behavior that you will see here, I can infer if I'm in a coherent state, which is leading to cognitive clarity and less stress hormone release, or if I'm stressed, or if I am depleting myself from energy, which means stress hormones. All right, so I'm going to press enter, and this emWave device will create a graph that you can see it's coming from this side towards that side. And as I talk, you will see that I will be in red in this bar here because I'm consuming energy. So I should be, since I'm trying to find the words that really make sense to you, that effort should be a release of stress hormones. Because let's say if I don't get through you, then this research, it's not understood. So what's the point? So maybe if I stress a little bit to try to make you see what's going on here, that stress is reflected in my heart rate variability together with the fact that I'm consuming brain energy because I have not stopped talking like a parrot intentionally so that you could see me in a stress or a semi-stressed mode. Now you can see I'm most of the time in red, okay? And this is erratic, like the signals in the beginning I show you connected with frustration. It doesn't mean I'm frustrated. I'm just spending a lot of energy intentionally. See, note, I'm not stopping talking. But as soon as I stop talking and listen to myself inside, and I do that by focusing my attention on my breathing and the region of my heart, that signal is going to change. Okay, watch it. So as you can see, my signals are changing, and I'm just breathing rhythmically. I'm not even meditating. Now I'm going to do meditation with an Om mantra from India. And watch what happens. Om. Om.
What recording you're making? I missed something earlier. This is from the year you're recording heart rate,
Heart rate variability.
and that is the top line.
That's the top line. Heart rate variability, not pulse.
Oh, heart rate per
Variability.
so that comes average of 1 minute.
Yeah. So yes, but what we record is the time between pulses. Yeah, and that time is random if you are stressed, but that time is very regular if you are coherent and peaceful. So it's a measurement of psychophysiological coherence.
But the time changes during the respiration as well.
That time can be changed via different respiration techniques.
Normally, when we breathe in and out, the interpeak, if you want to go RR interval,
Yeah, the RR intervals.
it changes.
Yes, but when you breathe rhythmically, your heart entrains with your respiration and with your brain, so then you make it more regular. And when you meditate with ohms and positive emotions, your respiration becomes more regular. When you're scared, you become more, more anxious, your respiration is altered. So all that is playing a part in that. Colin.
What about this other graph, the orange and blue and green?
This one is the time you spend in coherent states, the time you spend in stressful states, and the time you spend in neutral states. And at the moment, we have a mixture of all of us.
And what measures that?
Huh?
Your electrode anywhere? Where is it?
No, that's a mathematical formula that derives from the power spectrum. So the power spectrum of that signal, we apply the fast Fourier transform, and when we have a peak at 0.1 hertz, we know that the signal is coherent because it's, you have 10 cycles okay, so you have one cycle in 10 seconds. Yeah, so depending on that relationship between the peak of the spectrum in that frequency and the total power, we derive the coherence ratio, which is that which you see there. So if the coherence ratio is below a certain threshold, it's going to be a red. And we can actually refine that threshold. This is very beginner's level. But with very advanced meditators, we can raise the demand of being more coherent. And so they have to practice more deeply. And then to achieve coherence, you need to actually have a real focus on quiet states of being and peaceful states of being. And that's how we measure, or we help people develop that peacefulness without going to a cave in the Himalayas, but just practicing that in their homes or in their office 1 hour or half an hour a day, 3 times a day, and so on. So we have shrink the time that it takes to become an enlightened being if you really wish to do it, to make it happen in the city. So it's not anymore a monastery stuff, it's a day-to-day possibility. And that's because of ancient wisdom, of personal revelation, and modern science. The combination of ancient wisdom, modern science, and personal revelation makes this possible for you to see. Now, Doc, look at this wave pattern. This is another session where I was 100% coherent. Oh, that's Carl. Carl, you can see the name up here, Carl. 100% coherent in a meditative state by the beach. Yeah, and I can show you the spectrum, I think. I should be able, see? You see it's a peak around 0.1 hertz. That's the peak. And if I change the user, now that I kind of know how to do this, I hope. Carl, let's say that one here. Yeah, okay, so first experiment. See, that's me, the first experiment. You see, in the beginning I was going up and then I went down, and that's the red part here, and then I went up, and if you are between these two lines here, you're in the zone. It's called the zone, the coherent zone. So this feedback system helps you. And you see at the end, towards the end, I had a really good sinusoidal pattern. I was doing Om. In the beginning, I was doing respiration quietly without having to think about what I need to do next in the presentation. That makes the mind busy, and the mind generates patterns and so on.
We do biofeedback
Yeah?
in patients with the pain and migraine and all.
Mm-hmm.
How long the effect lasts of this on the brain so that you don't experience pain that badly?
Exactly.
But how long? Like if I
I know. You were gonna say, if I?
No, if I, teach or biofeedback to my patient and they really achieve what are you saying? They achieve that for 10 minutes in a day or something. You think they're paying? They will not pay for 90 minutes or 100 minutes all day.
What a great conjecture or hypothesis, which I tested by myself with an anecdotal evidence story that I'm going to tell you right now. I had to go to a dentist in Oregon. She has my records, okay? And she had to extract some teeth that were rotten from childhood because I detected that and I wanted to extract them so that wouldn't compromise my whole mouth because they're all bacteria. So she asked me if I would want anesthetics, and I said to her, no, I don't want anesthetics. I want you to extract all the pieces of the teeth that you need to with me, with a heart rate variability monitor portable, and you will see it in green, and sometimes you will see me doing sound. Don't panic, just do your work. Well, this woman saw me with my eyes closed, extracting, and she screamed to a doctor on the other room, this guy, it's like in a coma. He's not even blinking, and he's all the time in green. And the level of pain that I experienced was way, way, way smaller than if I didn't have these skills to do that. And I know in India, because I've seen it with my own eyes, people go through many different painful kind of techniques, okay, with breathing and meditation techniques, and they minimize the perception of pain by taming their minds and their bodies, put them in a certain relaxed state. Well, this is the same. And I've done that in a dentist without anesthetics. And that's already on record. Like I have records on that clinic,
I think it's over time though, like what you're asking, how long would it last? I think the more you do it, the more it becomes normal to your body, and you can enter those states very quickly. So it will have long-term effects.
It builds on itself.
It builds on itself, yes.
Exactly. It's a learning process that becomes a habitual pattern, a new habitual pattern, a new norm once you master that by practicing it enough. And enough depends on each person, depending on the genetic predispositions, depending on their conditions, depending on environments, all sorts of things.
So any studies you've done or somebody else who has done, like how much or how long, quantitative, how long a coherence should last when you're doing the meditation, which is more useful, like is it quantitative, is it related to the amount of coherence you have and the beneficial effect?
Well, a lot has to do with knowing how to meditate and how to breathe rhythmically and how to manage that in your workplace. For example, what I did since the beginning till now, was to talk as much information as I can, which I know it's gonna create stress hormones in my body. So I did that at will, okay? Now, if I'm giving a talk or I'm giving a presentation or talking with a person, I usually take time to listen. And in those moments that I'm listening to the other person, I'm rhythmically breathing. So listening is actually a way of restoring yourself and gaining cognitive clarity to be able to answer with more clarity to the other person's propositions. So listening, it's the key. Now you listen to others, how you listen to yourself. So when you learn how to listen to yourself, then you know how to listen to others. And to yourself means to the sense of well-being within you. I'm gonna define it like that. Listening to yourself is sensing how much well-being you're experiencing at the moment. oh, I'm talking too much, I'm stressed. Quiet, breathe. Okay? Again, I'm going to pause. Take a big breath, deep breath, and then continue. And if I connect, remember, put my attention and the area of my heart in my meditative quiet stillness, I can talk like that. I don't have to rush my talk as most people doing get sick, because they talk. They're depleting themselves all the time. And you learn how to regulate that. Now, I'm going to take the opportunity to invite Shara to ask whatever she wanted to ask, because that's going to give me the opportunity to replenish myself. What a great thing. Somebody's interrupting me. Yes, Shara.
In a very personal way, I'm going to name where I live. I'm living in a container. I'm living in a container that is without, for the most part, any realm of nature. Mostly, it's the air conditioning. It's not my cup of tea either, but it is. In my own condo, I leave the door open. That's it. I'm living air conditioning now. I'm saying I'm living in a container with certain food and certain vibration that exists here morning, noon, and night. And my only reprieve is to sit at the pool. Though of course I am surrounded by a vibration here. So I was walking one day at the pool because I know I'm at a certain vibration. And these birds here are used to me because I'm there a lot. So this first bird lands on the wall here, and it's sitting, and I come over and I stop. And we're this far apart. This far apart. And I'm breathing with the bird. The bird knows me, I know the bird. And I'm staying there waiting, because eventually the bird's going to fly before me. So the bird starts to talk. I'm listening, and I wait. And then the bird leaves. So what I'm saying, wherever you are, all the possibility is. But the most highest possibility is when you're in nature, in terms of the connecting with that vibration. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I just want to tell you one more thing that comes to mind in relationship to that. You can have a saint who have achieved enlightenment and peace, living in that place in being. But if that saint is hanging on a cross, bleeding, you bet that they are going to be incoherent and stressed, because every saint has a nervous system. Every saint has a nervous system. You know, they have a brain and a body and nerves. So if you hang them on a cross bleeding, they're going to be stressed because the body is in stress, even though they're in peace inside. So this is a combination of the inner peace and the physiological coherence. It's a combination, an integration between body, mind, and soul. If we neglect the body, it's harder to get to that place because our attention is in pain. But if we take care of the body, which is the temple of the spirit, then by taking care of the body, it's easier to access that inner peace and make it be in any environment present with me, even if my body is stressed. Because I know she's in peace, I know you're in peace, but sometimes this is a stressor, okay, for the body, but not for the soul. But if you stress your body for too long, then it becomes harder and harder to get to that state. And what I wanted to show you about the bird talking to you, Kali took a picture when I was meditating for world peace in Firianga, where a bird stood in my hand, a dove. A dove is a symbol of peace. And I was with my eyes closed. I was just meditating like that, and boom. And I have that picture somewhere in my computer. I don't know where, but it's there. And it immediately came to mind that those experiences, the more connection with nature, more intimate connection with nature and the universe at large becomes available to us in those states that Shara was referring to. I think that, I mean, I've said enough for today. If anybody else have a question or want to share, that's fine.
Just something I wanted to add, like with those biofeedback devices, they're introducing the biofeedback devices, the HeartMath Institute, they introduce them into schools now. So from quite a young age, many school kids are learning, they can learn how to mediate their emotions at will from quite a young age, and as part of the classes, they make sure that every day the kid has a certain amount of time on them, which I think is really valuable.
Yep. And we had, do you remember that Maori boy? You can tell that story of the Maori boy in Deerfield Beach that used to come to learn how to do coherent state, and he was pretty, yeah, we were in Deerfield Beach, and a young Maori boy used to come and learn with us how to be less violent and less. In Christchurch, near Christchurch. Litchfield Beach, yeah. Well, Deerfield Beach, Litchfield Beach, I don't know what the name is,
Oh, no, okay, a young boy, yeah, he was, I would say, a troubled youth that was in foster care because his parents didn't know how to deal with him, so he was staying at a house down the road from us, and he would come to us many days of the week and get on the device and started to learn how to control his temper, as he had quite anger issues, and yeah, it really was incredible to watch. Watch him get onto it, but also the joy that he got seeing that he knew how to pacify the emotions and the hormones that were arising in his body. Yeah.
So there are so many applications. Let your imagination fly and let me know what kind of applications, like you did, Doc, we can put this into practice and help more people find general well-being and inner peace. And we're very happy to do experiments of any kind of ideas that you may think people could benefit from.
I'm sure you know about a neurological condition
Yep.
where a person cannot feel pain at all. So he must be in a coherent state all the time.
Well, or the brain centers, being, but that's good in the sense that doesn't feel pain, but it's bad because if the person has the hand in fire, we'll lose it.
It's bad.
It's bad.
Pain is a very important
Up.
protective action.
I agree. And my discussions with Buddhist monks in Tibet was exactly that. I would tell them, look, you think that the yin and the yang means that you are half in the light or half in the dark or half pain, half pleasure in life. Not so. The body is most of the time in white, in pleasure, or in normal, and pain kicks in only when you violate the boundaries of your body or the normal functioning of your body. So it's telling you, get your hand out of fire because you're going to lose it, or get yourself out of this room because you're getting stressed. Pain and stress are very important signals for us to become more peaceful and more coherent. Pain is a protector of the integrity of our body.
Yes, it is very good. I read somewhere in one of the papers that there was a little boy in Pakistan who was earning money by hurting himself and saying, I don't feel any pain. And finally, he died. And what they found was a very, very bad appendicitis with abscess. He never felt any pain.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was.
I concur. And what we should do, instead of trying to eliminate or filter pain, is to actually learn to live with minimal pain in peace, in harmony, and be attentive to the subtle signals of pain so that they don't become too painful. You see what I'm saying? Because pain builds up.
Make it manageable.
Make it manageable. See, I agree with doctors because doctors agree with enlightened beings, and we are all working for the same thing: peace, social harmony, and general well-being.
This reminds me of
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
in
Thank you.
Vietnam War. There are monks, Vietnamese monks, who self-immolate. They put gas on themselves
Oh,
and burn.
no, I'm sure they feel pain.
And they may have immunity to pain because their consciousness at a higher level, where no pain exists.
I know people learn how to filter pain by changing the mind, the cognitive mechanisms, but as Doc pointed out, you should be very careful with that because you can kill yourself by shutting down pain, including ingesting a lot of Panadol or painkillers. That can soften your pain, but it can actually have indirect bad consequences for you. And so
This conversation really brings forth to me Jesus on the cross.
Yes.
Because it's really known that he stayed awake and one with the pain. He didn't look to,
well, he said, Father, forgive them. He said, why did you abandon me? So that's a symptom of pain, or that's a statement that relates to pain. Yeah.
But one of the things I wanted to mention to you and others, which you may have known,
How are you?
Joshua,
Yeah, I'm listening.
is that
Yes.
in Native Americanism and also in Indian
They say,
culture,
stay for half a mile away from me.
one went missing now.
You were going to say something about Native Americans and Indian culture connected with pain and Jesus.
And in the Indian culture, many others. But there are meditations through the ages that have been given down and taught, where the meditation includes the visual symbols, a
Excellent.
triangle, an infinity symbol with color and sound that takes you right up the chakra.
Yep.
And maybe online, I know the Cherokee Native American chakra clearing, and there is one that Deepak Chopra teaches. I'm just saying that these are ways of really, when you clear the spine, when you clear the system, it becomes extremely empowering for those levels of different.
I don't have any doubts of that. I actually experienced that. What I'm saying, and I agree with Doc, is that only masters, meditators, should know when to filter pain. For example, if you're in a war zone, like he was talking, yeah, and you get, God forbid, very badly wounded. If you have these techniques available, you may survive because pain will not kill you. So in that sense, it's really good to master how to filter that pain that is paralyzing you in a battlefield to get to a safe place and recover. Yeah. But if you are on a daily basis trying to kill your pain, ignoring the signals of pain in your daily life, that can lead you to the cemetery. So as everything else,
Yes.
For real. For real. So pain is not good or bad. Pain in general is a savior of your physical integrity in general. If it becomes chronic, then it can kill you. It's telling you, you have a chronic, yeah. So then the question is, how do we manage, which is a word that Doc used, and I like that word, how do we manage pain and pleasure? Very carefully, because eating honey, it's really pleasurable, and ice cream ain't good for you if you overdose that. You see what I'm saying? We have to manage everything and keep the balance. Does that make sense to you, Doc?
It does.
I consult with doctors all the time, even though I know how to manage myself, because it's very good to have checks with people who are more aware of certain aspects of the physiology that we're not. because he dealt with that day and night, okay, with different patients in different conditions and different genetic makeups in different cultures. So it's important to learn from all that information we have.
The seeing Jesus on the cross is very troublesome and painful and frightening. Why do we keep them in some of the schools, in the kindergarten? Children are running.
I agree.
Hey, the man was hanging on the cross.
It was only for a night, it's not there anymore. I agree. I've said that in schools, in Christian schools where I'm invited. I said, why is that guy that we don't know that looks like Jesus hanging on a cross? This is a painful, we know that images can create the experience in a lower level, but can release the hormones of pain just by watching and imagining that you're there. So why do we have those icons in the world? Great question. I've posed that question in many Christian schools. I can do it because my dad was an ex-Christian, so I'm invited to talk about peace and things. And I said, oh, Jesus is not on the cross, and we don't need to recreate Jesus on the cross because we now know much better on how to become peaceful and enlightened. It's a matter to do it. It's not a matter to be saved by an icon on the wall. It's a matter to understand the wisdom and apply it ourselves.
Good.
It's interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yes. Namaste.
Namaste.
I still want to ask why you are not wearing shoes.
I love it. Since I was a child, I grew up at the beach and I became accustomed to be barefoot. I've learned through the years that I surf better because of that, because I kept myself connected to the ground and to the board without anything in between. I think that's me rationalizing, yeah? It's good for me in many other ways because it keeps me in touch with the environment. I have to pay much more attention on where I put my feet, so I learned to read the environment much carefully. And the third thing is that I more likely will not develop scoliosis because when you wear shoes, always one wears up more than the other, and that's enough to give you scoliosis in the long term. So there are, but these are not my reasons. My reasons is because I love it. In New Zealand, many kids go to school barefoot.
Where?
In New Zealand.
All the other school?
Yeah, many kids go barefoot
Many?
yeah. Maoris for sure.
Poverty in Jamaica. It's a sign of poverty,
Ah,
not wearing shoes.
I see.
You look, I'm so rich that I'd rather tame down my wealth by being barefoot. You know what happened to me in Caracas? I was walking in Caracas barefoot, yeah, and on the streets, I'm stopped by a beggar. Why are you barefoot? Beggar asked me, why are you barefoot? So I told him, well, I just like to be barefoot, and then because they're Christians, I said, you remember Moses said to, God said to Moses, take your shoes out of your feet because the land you're standing is sacred. So I think every human being is a sacred land. So I want to be barefoot just in case I'm in front of God in every human being. So, so I told him that and he laughed and he said, no, you can take my shoes. The beggar gave me his shoes, please. And I said, no, I don't need them because I'm not gonna use them, you need them. If I ever need them, I'll come here and I'll ask them of you. I said, okay, we have a deal. If you ever need shoes and you cannot get them, you come here and I'll give you my shoes. That same day, I walk 5 kilometers east of the city. Another beggar stops me. This is crazy. Why are you barefoot? He says, well, same story. I said, no way. I've been begging for money because I'm poor. My daughter goes to school barefoot. I suffer to see her barefoot going to school when all the other kids have shoes. Now you're telling me you don't wear shoes and that's good for you? No, here's my money, that I beg. Go and get the pair of shoes. And no, buy a pair of shoes to your daughter. I'm fine, just it's okay for your daughter to have her shoes. I get to my house that day, walking the whole city. It's like I've walked 10 hours, yeah? I get back to my mother's, and she says, Joshua, look at the paper today. And I said, what is it? 2 people in Caracas have been killed by teenagers, 15 years old, robbing shoes from 2 elders. Give me your shoes.
Also sneakers. That are expensive sneakers.
Yeah.
I heard in Chester, Pennsylvania too.
So the day two beggars asked me to wear shoes, that day two people were killed because two kids with guns asked them to give them their shoes. Can you imagine the irony, the incredible irony of this situation for me? Like, oh my God, you're telling me that being barefoot can save my life? In Caracas, it can save your life. I'd rather be poor perceptually to others than rich, because that may lead me to the cemetery too.
But in India, most of the time, when you enter someone's house, you take off your shoes.
Yeah, that's the same in our homes, and I always say to people, when they ask me that question, why are you barefoot? I ask another question. When you get home, do you sleep with shoes or without shoes? I said, no, as soon as I get home, I remove my shoes. And I said, well, I want to feel home all the time.
That's great.
See you.
You too. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Valerie, thank you so much for everything.
say
I really
again,
appreciate it.
Come back again. All of you.
Here, same here. Well, what a beautiful talk, man. I really enjoyed it.